So we have ample time for questions for our panelists.
I actually had a question for the audience to follow up on that. Is this hot? So I like the idea of the conversation, that imaginary or less than imaginary conversation that happens between publisher and librarian at the library. And I think it does happen. But I wonder, just thinking about the theme of this panel, whether or not something more standardized or more sort of curricular version of that is necessary. And this comes back to some of Alice's questions that she had at the end of her presentation. Is there reason for a curriculum that brings information school students and future publishers together, having those conversations in a classroom setting? Is that, I mean, and this is an honest and open question, is that something that's necessary? Is that something that actually does build the skills that publishers need? Is that a conversation worth standardizing? I mean, That's the wrong verb. But is that a conversation worth creating a program out of? Is, I guess, the question. And it's an open one.
I work for American Chemical Society, so sometimes we engage interns at high school. Often I receive this question: what type of education track should I follow to join a publisher like American Chemical Society, and I'll prepare myself. Do you have any recommendation on certain universities and core curriculums available so that I can quickly tell them? Of course, the person and I can go and do research on the internet, but
sure. Yeah, so I know some of the universities I'm most familiar with. Pace University has a really well-respected publishing degree program. Portland State University has a program that's started, I believe, not too long ago. And then there, of course, there are the summer institutes, Columbia Publishing. I can't remember the full title of Columbia's program. University of Denver has a summer course as well. I'm trying to think of others. CUNY, I believe, also supports a summer publishing course. And Yale as well. Yeah, yeah, October.
George Washington University has one that's really geared to people who do it full time, or there's so many people who work in the DC area as a part-time curriculum, and a number of our SSP members are adjunct faculty.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, it's a master's program. Yeah, I would also add that the travel grants committee solicits applications from all the library schools that identify all the publishing programs. So we could ask them to put a list of those programs up on the website if that would be helpful.
That sounds like a great thing to do. So October mentioned the SSP Travel Grant Committee. I don't know if everyone heard, but the SSP Travel Grant Committee solicits students and early career professionals for the Travel Grant Award, and through those invitations has actually put together a list of programs. So I think putting something like that up on the website would be a tremendous resource to point students to. I mean, because those programs exist, and whether or not they're doing some of the things that we would love for them to do, there's always room for curricular change there. So I think at least having that as a starting place is great. I saw a hand up back here.
Yeah, hi, Peter Berkery from the AAUP. You might also consider, if your university has a university press, it's quite likely that the press has an internship program. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to get a really solid experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at those internship possibilities. Yeah.
Hi, I'm from actually Drexel Publication Management Program, and we have Publication Management Program, we have Information Sciences Program, and also the English department has started an undergraduate major in publishing. But actually, I came to the United States to specifically study publishing for my second master's. The thing I now see is that there is definitely a need for combining these programs together, because we have culture and communication, we have technical communication, they do everything. We do publication management, everything will be publishing, and then the library sciences is doing the information. But now that people are now right now that I am looking for jobs, it's not okay. So there is this overlap between all these skills, but the universities are not taking that into effect because they look at the library sciences is studying that, we should talk about it. I think that there is a definite need that these programs do that.
That's great. Does anyone want to follow up?
I was actually just going to somewhat answer your question from my perspective, which is a resounding yes. And part of the reason is not just I think it would be really helpful to share skills, which I absolutely think it would, but I do think it goes back to this them and us thing, and the more we can do to find ways to break down those barriers and recognise that we do all have the same mission. And I think teaching publishing students and library students together that we're part of the same, flip sides of the same coin would be a really, really productive way of moving that forward.
I'm David Evledge. I teach at Emerson College in the Master's degree in Publishing. and so I just wanted to make sure that we plug our program as well.
Emerson also has a program. It's a master's degree program.
Our big rival is NYU, and I think that actually NYU and Emerson have the two biggest and strongest publishing programs in the United States. Anyway. There's some good ones in Canada as well, and probably the best in the world is at Oxford Brookes University in the UK. The other thing I wanted to mention is that in the last 5 years or so, I've been giving publishing workshops for scholars on various campuses around the country, UVA and UMass Boston, and I've just come back from doing one in northern New York that serves St. Lawrence University and Clarkson and SUNY Potsdam. And what I find over and over again is that highly advanced, terribly intelligent, and wonderful people in the scholarly world who have to publish, of course, to climb the tenure ladder, are nonetheless left to float freely around with almost no support from their provosts, their deans, their department chairs, or what have you. And they're happy to have a publishing consultant like myself, who worked at Cambridge University Press long ago, to come in and say, here's how the game works. It's not as mysterious as you might think, as long as you know the language and how a contract works and what the production and marketing processes will be. So that's another area of development that I think this organization might possibly want to pursue, and I volunteer.
And I'll put in a plug. One of the articles in the journal issue I mentioned is by one of your graduates. So,
Really?
yeah.
Excellent.
And she has good things to say.
Great.
Yeah, I just had a little comment, which is kind of related to what you just said, because we, at my university, we had a really good experience about inviting publishers to our university and actually getting our scholars in contact with them so they can ask questions, and the publishers have the chance to actually explain to them why it's so important to do things a certain way and to check everything, like double check and how they check retention processes work and things like that. And I think that is also for us, I'm working in the library. So we also we get to talk, we get the publishers to talk to the scholars, but we also talk as librarians to the publishers. And we find it a really good way to lower the barriers, because I think there's, I'm really new to this, but I'm always a bit scared to contact publishers. I think maybe they are so strict about everything, but every time I actually contact them, it's really nice, and I get this really good feedback and stuff. So I think
We're scared of you too, by the way. Just saying.
start communicating, and I think
We're all quite nice, really, aren't we? We just need to talk to each other.
Wait, so not to be that guy, but what's the origin of that fear? Because coming from neither a publishing background or a library background, but having entered this field in the hybrid space, heading into Michigan Publishing, which was all about the hybrid space of press and a library coming together. I was scared of all y'all, but I didn't know exactly. So I often wonder about that anxiety. Is it?
I think it's a fairly recent thing, actually. I think it has been, there was a bit of October's shaking her head. When I first went into publishing, I wasn't scared of libraries at that point, but I think that, in my experience anyway, probably the last 10, maybe 15 years or so, and I think it's related to the budget cuts. It's that toxic combination of libraries having their budgets cut and publishers needing to continue to make profits, and at some point the balance got out of kilter, and we, instead of, this is not Wiley speaking, this is me speaking, I think rather than talking to each other about it and really trying to find problems, we just went on our separate paths, and the further apart we get, the harder it is to get back together. That's just my personal perspective, and October's probably going to put me right now.
I want to tell a story from 1988, which was my first SSP. I was invited as a librarian to talk to publishers, and I talked about how challenging it is to me personally to have to explain to faculty and students that we don't have a journalism, because we didn't have the budget, we couldn't afford everything. Like 1988, that was a long time ago. And as soon as I finished speaking, crisis or it's pricing crisis. And it was publishers blaming libraries for creating a crisis that didn't exist, and librarians blaming publishers for these exorbitant price increases. And at that point, it was a serious librarian. It hadn't gotten to the head of acquisitions, or the head of technical services, or the library director. I mean, those were like the early days of the battles. And you see that flare up sometimes, but I think we've learned a lot. I think we've come a long way since then.
Other questions? I thought I saw a hand up, but it's shyly gone away.
So I have a question for the panelists, which is around in what spaces should this type of collaborative training take place? Is it in library schools? Is it online? Is it at organization? Is it in doing collaborative workshops and things at events like this? Kind of where do we start in terms of the actual location of the kind of training that we're talking about?
I heard and listened to Corey talking about, so there was the apprenticeship model, and maybe we're somewhere else now, and I think that's true, but it also I don't see anything quite as valuable as people working together on a project because it forces out the questions. When I taught this course recently, where I happened to have both publishers and librarians in the room, and I didn't recruit for that, they're just the ones who came gravitating into the class. When we hit something like, I made them publish something. They ended up publishing a blog about information science. That was what they decided to do. But when it came to a question like, well, how is anybody going to know about this? What are we going to do? Everybody brought a different perspective. There were some people that were all over Twitter and some people that were all over the metadata. And somebody from the publishing field said, let's make a nice flyer. Let's make sure that gets posted all over campus. So there are all these sort of different skill sets and experience coming into play, but I don't think anything would have forced them out quite as much as having something concrete that we had to get accomplished. They had to get it accomplished for credit in this case. So I like to think about some models that bring people together around the act of publishing as well as the theory of publishing.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, and I think, I would say all of the above and probably a whole bunch more. Every opportunity I think we should be talking to each other, but I completely agree it can't just be about talking, because we do a lot of that, and whenever we have these conversations, for me anyway, it's really great, it's really inspiring, collaborative. I go away thinking, yes, brilliant, we can work with these people, but we actually need to find some things to do together where we have a common goal and where we can bring our different skills to the table and actually affect some change that we can all be proud of. So I completely agree.
Yeah, I really like the idea of, I'll return to the first person in the audience who commented and talking about that in library conversation. And then we had the woman in back who's talking about having publishers come to campus. And it feels like, so I'll return also to Michael Baskar's notion of amplification, which he talks about in the Content Machine. The process of amplification is not just about marketing, right? It's not just about branding and getting books into bookstores or into Amazon or into readers' hands. It's about finding new venues and new channels, new strategies for getting content to people. And it feels like one space where amplification could also be pedagogical is by bringing sales representatives, marketing representatives from commercial publishers into libraries in some more concerted, organized way. Not to give a sales pitch, but to do exactly what we were just talking about, to ask those questions. How are you using my stuff? One example, at Oregon State, we're just now adopting a new digital asset management system built on Fedora using Hydra with its basic structure built on linked open data. This is huge. This is all about search. This is all about better discoverability, better faceted finding of stuff. If publishers are not plugging into what's happening at the bleeding edge of library technology, they're going to lose the game. And this is an opportunity to teach libraries what it is you can provide as a service and as a product that helps them build the tools they're already building. And it's essential. It's really, really crucial that you have those conversations. So I'm saying that this is a pedagogical space. It's a marketing space. It's an amplification space. But it's also a space that's going to, maybe this might be a little radical, but it's a space that's not just about having a conversation. It really is about saving everyone's skins. Libraries are trying to do this because they want information to get out there, and they want that information to be as effective for their users as possible. Publishers can help make their information more effective and help libraries' jobs be a little easier. It's not easy or productive or cost beneficial to build boutique in-house systems. We don't have the capital or the personnel to do it. The capital exists elsewhere, and we'd be willing to pay for that service. I mean, that's something that I think is really crucial to understand. And I think that it has to start at the level of marketing and communication and pedagogy. I think there really is space there for that conversation to be an educational one.
I'll float the seed of an idea, which is really a twinkle in my eye and a little bit in the eye of the school I work for right now. I'm curious what people think of it. Wondered about some kind of residency program, probably short term, that actually put librarians at publishers for a few weeks and put publishers in libraries for a few weeks. Time for more than one beer, time for several beers, and put people at working meetings, maybe even gave them something to do, both as a kind of opportunity to experience each other's cultures, but also as an opportunity to contribute expertise and to learn about the concerns so they can take that back home. So I think this is, in theory, I'm in favor of this idea. I've been trying to think through the logistics, and you might, if you're interested, you might ask yourself, if you're a manager, would I be willing to let somebody go for a few weeks to go do this? Would they bring back something of value to the organization? Or would I be willing to host somebody for a few weeks and put the effort into making sure they had people to talk to, something to do, things to think about? But I do wonder if that's one direction, particularly in the scholarly publishing world, between academic libraries and scholarly publishers, if that kind of exchange might be fruitful.
That's great. And I'll say I would definitely invite something like that at Oregon State. I think it would be hugely useful. So come talk to me if you're at all interested in coming to the Willamette Valley, just a mere hour and a half south of Portland.
Well, thank you for joining us, everyone, and please join me in thanking our speakers.